We are live. Welcome to my completely spoiler review of Commander Keen in Keen Dreams Definitive Edition. Wow, that title's a mouthful. This was released in 2023. Let's see. I already mentioned no spoilers. The game, I want to say, is probably rated E for everyone. Certainly this video will be. And it would make sense for the game to be, because there's not really anything, violent or some such. Okay, this, I solemnly swear, will be a completely honest review. I will go into the negatives. But yeah, I freaking love this. Even this new edition, and yes, it definitely has problems. You know what? I am going to do something I very rarely do and talk about what it's like to start this game up, because this is something that a lot of people were put off by, and I don't blame them. I want to make that absolutely clear. I do not blame anyone for not liking this game. I'm going to try not to be super snarky about, some of the criticisms I do definitely disagree with. If I'm snarky, it is meant playfully. I 100% understand. I'm not telling anyone they have to go out and get this. And certainly if you get it on sale. Don't, it's not, I've seen several people say, oh, it's not worth full price. Absolutely agreed. No argument there. Anyway, when you start this up, basically, you will have to press either enter or left control. This will bring up the profile menu, which, as far as I can tell, is the only menu this time around. Right, haha. Before I go any further, I want to make clear, if you just want to play the original version, if you buy the definitive edition, which again, I'm not saying you have to, but it actually has two versions. One that has kind of weird, funky colors, so I didn't really play that one. And then one that's literally the exact same game that I played, way back, like 30 plus years ago, 100% the exact same experience. Played a couple of levels of that. Nice to have an excuse to, but I played it for this review. But that one works flawlessly. But and this review will cover both games. If I do my job right, I will make it absolutely clear which, because there's significant differences. I'll do my best to make it clear which one I'm talking about at any given time. So, when you start the definitive edition of this, I already mentioned, you bring up the menu. Yeah, seemingly the only menu. As far as I can tell, there's no way to change the difficulty setting, which, yeah, I don't know why they changed that. That's another thing. Please assume, because I will, pretty much everything about the definitive edition, like, a lot of it I think might be by accident, because, like, I am, like many others, baffled by how bad the menu thing works. Yeah, pretty much everything in this game might literally just be by accident. Of almost everything, in the definitive edition. I'm not taking anything away from the original version, from the 90s. I want to say 91. Oh, hold on. I think I actually have that information. I do not, but I believe it's from 91. Like other Keen games, or from around there. Anyway, yes. So, brings up, to go back, we're going to go back to the menu, the profile menu. I saw someone say they tested it a bunch of times, and seems like 7 times out of 10, this menu will not show up properly. I did not do a test of my own, but I think that's an accuracy. I don't think that's an exaggeration. The important thing that I want to make clear is the game works. At no point did the game actually not work for me. There's just there's stuff that seems like it might be missing, like these menus, but I was able to complete the entire game. Like, this is not, okay, I will acknowledge in my review for Enter the Matrix, I may have gone a little easy on that game, because I really love that game. That game has aspects that are essentially broken, and you just, like, you either tolerate it or you just don't play through the entire game. You know, the AI driving is essentially broken and there's at least one level where you are like firing a gun from a car and the AI is driving, and it'll drive into stuff and take way too long to back up and you know, drive back in the right direction, essentially making, like, I don't know if it's even possible without cheats to beat that level on like the two higher of the 3 difficulty settings. You know, this game is not really broken, it just appears that way at first, and that's something I really want to dispel, because I saw people just say, well, I can't get past the menu, and I don't blame them. Anyway, yes, the bug basically, you know, 7 times out of 10, the menu is bugged. What this means is you can see, that was the thing, I never, you know, let's see, I played this over almost 2 weeks, I think, because last week was a review from memory, and I think the week before that, I think it was around 2 or 3 weeks, something like that. So I never struggled to see the selection, what was currently selected in the main menu, in the one menu that exists. Basically, there are 3 profiles. One you start on, one you can select by going down once, one you can select by going right once if you were up. And then in the bottom right corner, there is a function to erase all the progress from any of the profiles. You know, if you want to activate that, I believe it is left control. Henceforth, I'm just going to say jump, because it's the jump key. You know, yeah, you go to the lower right corner, jump, move to whichever profile you want to, you know, reset, press jump again. That's it, you know. And, you know, if it really, really bothers you that you can't really see in the menu, you can just use the first profile. You know, at that point, you just, you know, you start up the game, press enter or jump, then press jump again. You've loaded your progress. Another thing that I forget if I saw anybody else say this was off-putting. This is the rare case where I play a game, I purchase and play a game that's actually, I want to say it's like mostly negative on Steam. You know, almost always I play games that have significantly higher. It's kind of rare for me to even play something that has like mixed reviews. It's usually positive. Anyway, and I think I've read every single English language Steam review, negative and positive. And like I mentioned, I'm gonna try to cover the criticisms. Anyway, yes, the let's see. So, another thing that, you know, when I first encountered it, it put me off. When you load your profile, it doesn't matter how many levels you've completed, and I can confirm this because I basically played 1 or 2 levels. I think there was one day where I played 3, but usually 1 or 2 levels per day, you know. No matter what, when you load the profile, it's gonna put you at, you know, geographically at the start of the game. And at first I was like, so it didn't save? But no, it saves, you know, it auto saves at the completion of any level. It just puts you back at the start, but you don't have to complete the very first time you play this. You have to complete the first level before you really can move around the overworld map in either of these editions. But you can walk past that first level once you've cleared it, again, in either edition. I think that is pretty right. Another thing, whenever you want a menu to come up, you press enter. It will always bring up some menu. If you're in a level, the menu will allow you to leave that level. If you are in the overworld, it will enable you to go back to the title screen. I have not discovered a way to close this game that is not windowed mode, click the X, or Alt plus F4. And that's another thing that has bothered people, and I don't blame them. It's a weird. I don't know if it feels like they just didn't. Like, I don't know. I've seen some suggest this was maybe a rush job. I could see that, which again makes it really. It's important to me that you know the game works. Like, there really isn't that. Yes, one more thing, and then I'll get into the. I have seen several people, independently of one another, say that the game runs too fast. I will acknowledge that it is possible that it is because, my current PC is 5 years old, It runs well. There's nothing, I can play games that were released up to and including, 2020, but, oh, actually, yeah, I guess this is, no, yeah, some, the ones that are not demanding that were released after 2020, so, this, Overloop, I think there's maybe a couple of others, but, the ones that are not super demanding. Anyway, I did not have any issue. It ran at the same speed for me that it did 30 years ago. I don't know if some people are just unfortunate or if they have much newer computers than me. I don't know anywhere near enough about computers to say, but yeah, for a lot of people, the frame rates are messed up, and at least one person said even if they went to adjust it, it was still messed up. I think they ended up with it being too slow. And that's obviously also an issue, because that was one of the big, like, when this originally came out, it was much less slow than the first three. It's especially in how the controls are smoother for Keen himself. It is finally, such responsive. It's a joy to control around the captain. I'm sorry, commander. I think that is, yeah, so let's get into, the, yeah, I think I did I already mention it? I'm using the Steam version. I don't know if there are other, right, and I played on PC. I could not tell you a single thing about, I don't even remember, is it Switch maybe? It came out on some other platform. And I think that was the reason it was rushed. They had to get it out, yeah. They rushed it to get it out for, yeah, maybe the Switch or something. Yeah, which I get, because it's one of those things, like, if you're going to play any Keen game without playing the others, because it seems like they didn't do this for the others, or maybe maybe that version just didn't come to PC, because I haven't seen anything about, like, the definitive editions of any of the others. Dude, I will play, don't leave money on the table. Like, I don't know, I guess maybe I'm in the minority. Maybe there's not that many other people who still frickin' love Commander Keen. But anyway, no, that was the other thing. Where were we? Yes. No. Played it on PC, on Steam. Maybe I'll think of it later. Anyway, so, the plot. And this remains the same for both editions. Keen does not want to eat his vegetables. His mom insists. It really bothers him. So he goes to sleep, and then he wakes up, and his bed is, like, in this other place, and there's, like, yeah. It's this horrible nightmare where there's this, like, weirdo dictator who's having a bunch of people kidnapped and like forced to endure really cruel conditions, and the dictator is, like, seemingly always angry and like kind of weird looking. And yeah, I don't know. I mean, I guess he woke up to Trump's second term. But yeah, here the dictator is one King. I'm gonna get the name right. King Boobus Tuber. And yeah, there's a boss fight against him, and this is the part that's gonna either like get you really hyped to play or at least hear more, or be like, okay, that's too ridiculous. Boobus Tuber is a giant potato. That's not a metaphor. He literally is a giant bipedal, angry-looking potato. Every enemy in this game is a vegetable or fruit. I think some of them are fruits, technically, but yeah. Yeah, I think this might be what Nathan Yaffe sees in his nightmares. Or I guess for him, they would all be tomatoes, specifically. Yeah, you're moving through this weird place, and everything's vegetable. And yeah, I don't know. I kind of love it. It's so wonderfully, like, they really understood how, like, because he's supposed to be, I want to say, like 10 years old. Did I write that in my old review? Let's see. I seem to not have. Okay, but yeah, 10. He's around 10. And yeah, 10-year-old boys tend not to like vegetables, so yeah. I think that will do for the yeah. So one of the I'm gonna start with talking about, there's really only one new feature in the definitive edition. There's other stuff, but there's one new feature, and that feature is the run function. Now, when I saw people saying, "Oh, it completely ruins like the pace of the gameplay," something like that, I was all ready to go on this big epic rant about how this is exactly like how some people get really annoyed about the kind of rush feature in the Thief 2014 game, or the third person's perspective in the third Thief game. And it's like, just don't use them. Nobody's forcing you to use them. You do have to use the run function. So, fair enough. You just don't have to for a while. The run function definitely does have slight awkwardness to it. To me, it's the kind of thing you get used to it. It felt very smooth to me by the end, I will acknowledge, at first, I was like, this is ridiculous, but yeah. And it is one of those wonderfully video gamey things, which again, I have no idea if this is purposeful, but if you start jumping without moving, just standing still, jump, and then you hold down the run key, which I should also say is shift, which some have argued is a bad idea, and I don't necessarily disagree. It is awkward to use both left shift and or I guess right shift might be even worse, because you got to use the arrow keys. I'm pretty sure you can't use WASD. I believe I tested that. That was one of the things that people dislike. I guess even if you could, that would also be awkward. Anyway, yes, I'm gonna stop looking at my keyboard now. Anyway, yes. If you jump from standing and then you hold down run, he will be able to jump further as if you had, not necessarily run and then jumped, but walked and then jumped, which, it's like the double jump. Like, we accept these things in video games, although I'm sure some people have really taken issue with it. But yeah, there's a bunch of jumps where if you do not take a run up to it and hold down the run key, I believe also is important during the jump until you land, yeah, you're not going to be able to make the jump. I think that's what I want to say about the jump for now. The run for now. There's more, but it's so specifically tied to other elements of the game. I swear I'm gonna talk about it later. Yeah. Other than that, so both versions of this, couple of new things for the Keen franchise, and some of the stuff was kept for later games. I guess I'll start with so stuff that was also okay. I guess I will also say for some reason there's a couple things that were in the earlier games not present here. There's not really moving platforms as such. There's a thing or two that's reminiscent, but yeah, I don't know. For some reason they just didn't include it here. But I guess they felt that was a mistake because I think the next three, yes, 4, 5, and 6 all have it. Right, this was referred to as Keen 3.5. It came out after 3, but before 4. And yeah, it's a massive leap forward. But in some ways, the fourth one really, the fourth one brings in a couple or changes something. I guess does it only bring back stuff that had already, because this also doesn't have the pogo stick that was also in the trilogy, the first 3 games. Right, there's technically only one trilogy of Keen games. That's why I refer to it as the trilogy. There was supposed to be a second trilogy. Stuff didn't work out. Whatever. But yeah, they brought that back for 4. And I think 5 and 6 also have that, and don't really bring in new stuff from 4. But yeah, one thing this brings in that's also in, technically, let's see, you can sort of duck in 4, 5, and 6, but in this one it actually looks like you're ducking. It is one of those things where ultimately the ducking doesn't come up that much, where in at least the 4th one, you actually do have to duck to maneuver certain areas. But in this one, it's kind of just, I think there's some projectiles you can duck under, but it doesn't help otherwise, and it doesn't make you less visible to enemies or anything, so. But if you hold down, and then you press jump, you will be able to jump down through certain platforms and such. You could already jump up through them and then sometimes land directly on them. In the trilogy, you can still do that, but yeah, that sticks for the next 3 as well. But perhaps the most interesting feature in the original. In the definitive edition, it's obviously, or the run gives this one a run for its money. In this one, Keen, according to the story, uses up the last charges of the hyper pistol, or I think that's what it's called, something like that. The one that he uses in the first 3, and I think from 4 on he has a slightly different one, but whatever. This is the only of the 7 games that he does not have a pistol of any kind. What he has are flower seeds. And I did just briefly want to note, it seems like some people, some have put in their review that when you pick up flower seeds in the definitive edition, you get more of them than originally. As far as I can tell, this is simply not so. I think the thing that threw them off is the fact that in the definitive edition, every level you start with 10. Doesn't matter how many you had when you finish the last level, you're always going to start with 10. Whereas if you play the original version, you're going to, from what I recall, you start with 0, which is okay because the start of the first level has you finding some of these seeds. And the first level is also not super aggressive about enemies, except for maybe one particular spot. But Anyway, the seeds will briefly turn pretty much any... let's see. Pretty much any real enemy, not the obstacles. There are obstacles, some of which can fire projectiles. But the actual enemies, other than the king. And yes, they will turn into a flower, but the effect is very temporary. Which again is, this is the only of the 7 Keen games to have only a temporary, and I guess, like, that's the thing, even if you play on the highest difficulty settings, 4, 5, and 6, they simply don't have that. There's enemies that you can't shoot, including enemies you can't kill at all, but, or I mean, you can shoot at them, but it's not going to do anything no matter how many, trust me, I've tried. But in this one, only temporary, and I do sometimes wish that they had made a temporary effect on at least the highest difficulty setting in 4, 5, and 6, but I guess maybe they got a lot of negative feedback, and I get it. And that is, I guess I'll just briefly talk about, so among other things, but one of the things that the difficulty settings in the original version of this does is the higher the difficulty setting, the shorter amount of time the flower effect lasts. The quicker you have to get past the enemy. And, yeah. And, you know, some of the later games do more. I forget if... Certainly I know some of the later games will add more enemies, including tougher enemies, to where, like, there have been times, I think the 4th one is the only one where I completed the entire game on the hardest difficulty setting. There were times of that where I was like, this is impossible, I can't do this. And eventually I got there. You know, you really got to apply it yourself. It was a really awesome challenge. But, yeah, this one is, you know, it's just not quite the same. I forget if this has the thing about adding more enemies, but certainly I just didn't feel like the challenge was quite as... It wasn't... Well, the challenge is there, but it's not in as interesting a way, if that makes sense. I think... Yeah. I swear I'm not going to spend forever on it, but I do just have to talk some more about the seeds, because it's such a great element here. Okay, so... The seeds will bounce. You know, if you fire the pistol and you miss, it's, you know, whatever, you missed. But, you missed. But, in this, they will bounce, which technically means that you can throw a projectile over the head of an enemy, make it bounce off a wall, hit the enemy, and like, be moving towards the enemy as he's transforming into a flower, and thus have more time to get past him. That's actually extremely useful if you're playing on the highest difficulty setting to get past certain enemies. You can... So if the seed lands on the ground, it will stay there and, like, blink out of, you know, slowly out of existence. It takes a couple of seconds. If an enemy runs into a blinking seed, it will transform into a flower. That's another thing that can be very beneficial, you know? If you feel like it, you can juggle with them. You can throw them directly into the air, and they'll come back down. And that's, again, another thing. There are parts of this game... I'm sorry, but it's important to me that you know this. There are parts of this game where you can jump, throw a seed into the air, and there'll be an enemy up above that will walk into that seed in a way that you just can't with the gun, because that just fires, and the projectile, you know, if you're not directly underneath an enemy while firing up. This was also the first game where you could attack down and up. In the first 3, you can only attack left or right, you know, and it opens up so many strategic opportunities. And that was also something that was kept up in the next 3 Keen games. Okay, I think that is almost everything about these seeds. Let's seeds. I think that might Yeah. Sometimes you can fire multiple seeds and leave them on the ground, so multiple enemies will all hit those seeds. Some enemies will try to like jump over you, so you can attack up. Um, right. I do want to briefly comment on. So in the definitive edition, as mentioned, you cannot store seeds, and this is interesting because if you're very wasteful in the yeah, you can technically run out of seeds in the original version. In the definitive edition, like, yeah, you can run out within that level, but like if you end a level with 0 seeds, that did happen on at least one occasion to me. Yeah, next level you still have 10. No matter what, doesn't matter. If you run out of seeds within a level, if you die, you just start the level over. You have 10 seeds. Yeah, that is. Let's see. I guess I'm already talking difficulty setting. I guess I might as well. Kind of stuff. Anyway, yeah. Yes. In the original edition, from what I recall, if you die, you just. Hold on. I think you have the same number of seeds when you respawn as before, which means if you're inside a level and you die and you didn't have seeds, you still have no seeds, and that was part of the, that's 90s games, they like to challenge you, try playing the original, I want to say 1989 Prince of Persia, some games from that time, very, very difficult. Yes, so I think, do I want to... It is very interesting because there were levels where I entered them in the definitive edition and I was like, I don't know how 10 seeds is going to be enough. And I played the levels, and sometimes, I kind of realized if you're careful enough, you will always have just enough of these seeds. That's the thing. You definitely don't want to ever panic. If you find yourself, that's the thing. Like, if you run out of seeds, just let yourself die. And if you can't find an enemy, press enter. There's a function. I think I forgot to mention that the only menu where it was consistent that it always showed the selection was the profile menu. The other menus, sometimes it's just not going to show it. However, it will always start out selecting the top one. So just keep a cool head. Determine how many times you got to click up or down arrows to get to the right one, and then ignore the fact that you can't see which one is selected, and then press jump to activate once you've selected the right one, But yeah, you can use the menu within a level to restart the level in the definitive edition. But yeah, some of the levels, it really added to the challenge that you start with only 10. Like, I was doing the math in my head, and I was thinking, it's not going to be enough. I'm going to move on because I'm talking too much about this one thing. Anyway, I thought it was an interesting element. I don't know whether to praise them or say, well, it appears to not have been what you meant to do, but it worked. But yeah, the definitive edition, you have infinite lives. There is no way to run out of lives, which means that the challenge comes from other things. One of those things is there is no way to save inside a level. You have to complete a level. It doesn't matter how close you are to completing that level. If you didn't complete it, if you die near the end or leave the game or whatever, it's not going to count as you having completed that game. Whereas, in the original edition, let's see, I think it was maybe that there were 2 versions, because there's 2 of the old versions in this. I think maybe one of those did not have mid-level saving, but, it was added in the more recent one. And again, I swear, this is not me, like, misremembering. When I was playing this 30 plus years ago, I would not have been able to complete the entire game if I could not save partway through levels. But yeah, if you badly want that, you're not going to be able to play the new levels. But you know, that is also included in the definitive edition. It's the third, you know, when you open it in the PC, it's gonna ask you which you wanna start up. Start up the third one, and yeah, they use DOSBox emulation. It plays completely smooth. I've already said that. I'm gonna move on. Yeah, and right. One of the things that make it more challenging is the lack of mid-level save. The other is the limit. Yeah, the fact that you always start with 10 seeds. That's definitely a thing. Some levels you're gonna want to pick up every seed. You can, yeah. I think that might just about. Let's see. Yeah, in the original game, limited lives. You could get extra lives, but you know, one hit kills for you, not for them. You know, you will die if you are hit even once. And I think that might just about cover. But that is, I will also say about the seeds. The counter seems to stop at 99 seeds. 99 flower seeds. But it is actually counting, and you know, I've tested it. Once it hits 99, it doesn't mean you have 99 seeds. It means that it's not going to show how many, but you can have over 100. I think that's it for the difficulty. So, yeah. Let's see. Yes. Right. Okay. I mentioned some of the controls. I forget if I said Alt is the attack key. Yeah. By now I've mentioned all of the controls. So yeah. You know. I think that gets us to the enemy design. So yeah. So the following goes for both versions. The enemies, like, they did such a good job, man. Like, they could have just said, like, well, I don't know, there are fruits and fruits and veggies, whatever. But they always make sure, like, each of them has distinct, like, let's see, do all of them? I guess pretty much all of them have at least eyes, if not other than that faces necessarily. And yeah, there's always a distinct, yeah, I honestly am not, I don't think I've ever seen such a scary tomato. Like, I remember being like, it's not like, Nightmares is not like 1982's The Thing or something, but it pushes it just far enough. It's you know, it's R.L. Stine. It's scary for kids in a way that's not gonna traumatize, but they have the evil eyes and these big mouths with sharp teeth, and they bounce around. You know. The potatoes are just these like faithful soldiers just marching around. They've got like a rifle with a bayonet, and that is one thing you definitely want to. They can't fire the rifle. They never fire the rifle. They go up close to you and then they hit you with the bayonet. And also, I like that in this one, unlike all the others, when Keen dies, he goes to sleep. Like, he lays down, puts his head on his both hands, and is lying in a position that that's how you sleep. So that's a neat kind of, in the others he like looks like he's in pain, for example, but here just, yeah. Right. And also I think this was the first one where they have him, like, if you don't move him for a while and he doesn't die, he's gonna start doing an activity, and in this one he goes to sleep, and I think he even like puts covers over himself, which he doesn't when he dies, but yeah, and if I recall correctly, there's even like Zeds above his head, and then when you move him, he like, gets up and he, yeah, again, he moves in a way that's how you get out of bed, basically. Anyway, yes, so I gotta talk about apples. Okay, it's really difficult to make me hate apples. But then again, in this game, they are red. I do not like red apples. This is the first of the games where you can, fireman style, go up and down a pole. That was also something kept for the others. So can the apples. Every other enemy, if you get to a pole, if I mean, you're not necessarily safe. Depends on if you can get like high enough or low enough or whatever. The apples will go onto your pole and kill you, and they are fast. Like holy crap. Yeah. I think with the run function you can probably move faster than them. But other than that, in the original version you cannot move faster. So you just got to make sure either to be ready to flower them or not be able. And there's this one level they do this it's such a great thing because like they can't jump between them. They can climb them if they're at the top or at the bottom, and they can't jump. You can jump and grab onto a pole, but they have to, and there's this area where sometimes they can come from above, sometimes they can come from below. I think there might even be one where they can do both, but yeah, so be careful you're not on that one. Right, crap, about features. You can also, if you hold down the up key, he will look up. If you hold down the down key, he will look down, and you get a little bit more, you can see more of the area, which can sometimes be crucial. Let's see, there are... See, I don't actually know exactly what they are. We always called them French fries when, as kids playing this game. I guess they're not because he's scared of them, and I mean, I don't know what American kid doesn't like French fries. If you don't, that's fine. But I'm just saying he's supposed to be like the stereotypical, But anyway, yeah, looks like a large French fry, like man-sized, slightly higher, slightly taller than Keen, going around throwing French fries. I don't like him. We're not friends. If he said otherwise, he's a liar. Sometimes they'll place him in areas where it is very, very difficult to get into a position where his French fries throwing does not hit you pretty much no matter what. There's one level in this where I genuinely, I was like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to get through this without the mid-level save. And I don't think it would have been terrible if there had been near-end checkpoint saves. Like, you could even make it that, no, you have to defeat the level. If you quit the game, you'd have to start over. But, just, yeah. Anyway, eventually I was able to get past it. But there's, yeah. If you've played the original version of this game, you might know what I'm talking about. Let's see. I want to say they're called cucumbers. They are fast, like so fast. If you are in its path, get out. Or possibly, if you see it from far enough away, you might be able to hit it with the flower power. But otherwise, just get out of its way. And there's a spot in this that's annoying for that reason. And let's see. I think that more or less covers. What do we have left? I think it's a squash. It also has a face that starts out neutral but gets mean when it gets close, and it'll jump. And it does this wonderfully annoying thing where it doesn't quite jump high enough that you can be fast enough to throw a flower seed above you. But it also jumps so high that if you just throw the flower seed straight ahead, you're gonna, undershoot it. Yeah, the solution is, back up a little bit, jump, throw. That's another thing. The jump throw, holy crap. It takes a little practice to get good at aiming it, but it is so freaking useful. I feel like I'm missing at least one enemy. Let me think. I've covered the... Right, so, see, I think... is that also supposed to be an actual... I'm slightly unsure if this following one is also a cucumber, because it kind of looks like it, but yeah, it moves not like super fast. And the thing about this one is you can touch it and be fine, but its projectiles are one-hit kills. So if you feel playful, you can like go up against it and like move right in front and behind, and just, yeah, you know, that's more fun if you're playing the original version. You can, you know, just save scum, but it can be fun. I think that does pretty well cover... Yeah, I feel like I'm missing at least one. Maybe I'll think of it later. Right, yes. Broccoli. Remember broccoli? Glad nobody's forcing me to eat broccoli these days. The broccoli, like, sort of runs not quite as fast as the cucumber, and it's got this real angry, mean-looking face. I think that one also has teeth, but I try not to look too much at it, and, you know, just get out of its way. If it gets up against you, it will slam down on you with yeah, I have no idea what that's called in English, but the top of the broccoli, you know? Yeah, so I think I've made pretty clear they have very different movement patterns, movement speeds, attack types. You know, the tomato doesn't shoot, but it will bounce, and yeah. Several of these enemies will change movement pattern upon being near you. Not all of them. The running cucumber just, you know, does the same. But some of them, you know, they have like patrol patterns, like the broccoli and the spud soldiers. But if you land near them, even if they're like moving in the other direction, they will turn around and go right for you, you know. And sometimes even if you're like above them, like the spud soldier will start like moving slightly, even if it's supposed to go all the way over and all the way over. If you're right above, it'll just go back and forth in a very, yeah, it's, again, opens up strategic possibilities, because when it's right below you, you can attack, you know, if you can maneuver the jump properly, you know, just, yeah. I think that might, but yeah, you know, some moves, some walk, some bounce or jump otherwise, some run, some shoot, you know, just like a really great, and also the boy is Mr. French Fry fidgety, because he'll walk a few steps, throw a couple of French fries, walk up a little bit, or back up a little bit, throw a few French fries, you know, maybe back further, maybe go over, and he'll also very much, like, he doesn't throw at all if you're not nearby, but yeah, if you're like above him or land behind him, he'll change movement pattern. But yeah, that's also part of what makes him so challenging, because you don't always know, and it can be difficult to move faster. I guess maybe the run could help even things out. Maybe that's what they were thinking, or maybe it didn't work out the way they had planned it for the game. But yeah, right. It looks great on, you know, I mean, I don't have the biggest monitor, but maybe that was also, crap, I don't even remember if monitor affects FPS. I play these games, man. I don't build computers. I don't know enough about this stuff to, anyway, yeah. But yeah, looks great, moves great. I think that does bring us to the next. So, yeah, I forget if it's all of them, but the first three and the fourth, you are, it's essentially fetch quest stuff. You know, I mean, does it count as, whatever. Think fetch quest. You are collecting these items. You're collecting or finding something or someone's, in order to complete the game. And this is the only, from what I recall, the only one of these. Certainly the only one of the ones I've just mentioned, where what you're collecting is actually the weapon that you defeat the enemy with, you know? You collect boobus bombs. And yeah, you need 12 to defeat Boobus. You cannot actually enter his most royal and secretive chambers if you don't have at least 12. Like, literally, the game will say, come back when you have more. At least in the original edition. I didn't try in the definitive edition. I only went to his chambers once I had 12. In the original version, you can collect more. Let's see, is it maybe like 21 or something? So, you know, you need to hit him with 12 to win. But if you waste any, you know, if you collect more than 12, which again, definitive edition doesn't really allow you to collect more, as best I can tell, at least, doesn't allow you. So you don't really get to miss, which again is a fun way to make it a little more challenging, you know. And again, you have the run function, so there's stuff that helps even out. And the Boobus bombs, which are only used and automatically used when you get into the King's Chambers, they work exactly the same as the flower seeds, you know, include right up to, you know, if you miss, that you can pick it up if it doesn't blink out of existence too fast, you know, and you can lure him onto one of them. It's a really great boss fight, so much better than the third one. Yeah, I think, let's see, I think, see, there's so much to say about this game. I forgot to include the following, because that's another thing. I didn't see anywhere where anybody even wrote out, how do you get to the new levels? Now, I have decided I'm not going to say how many levels are in the original or how many are in the definitive edition. If you want to know, Steam store page. It's right there under the, you know, about game section. I will briefly explain how to get to them, because, you know, I didn't see anyone else explain this, and I don't know if anybody else is playing this, so maybe this is, you know, but in case someone does. And I've decided, in case you want to discover for yourself, I don't want to spoil it for you. So, when I lower my index finger, I am done with the spoilers. You can mute and skip ahead until you see me lower my index finger. So, the way to do it, you have to go to Boobus's chambers. You know, this was something that was a little confusing to me, but you have to, I don't know if you have to complete all the levels. That was just, I did. I don't know if you have to, but obviously at least the castle. But when you go to the King's Chambers, instead of this traditional boss fight, at first it will have a completely different level, one of the new levels. Once you've completed that one, every single level in the overworld map, including Boobus's Chambers, although that one you already played, the additional one, but every single one, when you go to it and you start that level, it will ask, do you want to play the first or the second course? And the first course, I think for Boobus's Chambers, is the new one, which is a little awkward, but for all the other ones, the second one is the new one. And again, it's not going to show you your selection in the menu, at least it didn't for me, any of the times. But at the start, it will always have selected the first one. So you click the right arrow button once, and then jump, and then you'll be able to play the new one. So, no more spoilers. Yeah. I think that pretty well gets us to... Right, so I do want to briefly talk about... So the graphics, and this is for both versions, you know, this is such a huge step up from the trilogy. There are these, like, sort of... You know, stuff looks slightly more 3D, and the backgrounds will sort of move to give the illusion that you are, like, moving... You know, that you're, like how if you in real life look at something as you're walking, you know, the perspective switch is basically what, you know, yeah, it's a massive improvement. If you look at, you know, stills from this game and the first three, you'll see. I think, yeah, the audio is quite good. There's a great transformation sound for the flowering and deflowering of the vegetables. And I think, yeah, the various attacks. I love how much I hate the bouncing of the tomatoes because it's just such an unpleasant noise. Again, without getting it's not like Silent Hill or something, you know. Yeah, that has really, really horrifying sound design. But yeah, it's don't like it, don't want it, get it away from me. So the music is quite good, very catchy. I saw where someone pointed out there's really only one new track for the definitive edition, and I think they said it plays in every level. I have to admit I didn't notice if it was the exact same. I think it might have been, yeah. Yeah, I think right. Okay, so one thing I did see. Some people really, really take issue with the fact that there are no difficulty settings in the definitive edition. I agree that that is technically correct, the very best kind of correct. However, I do take issue with the idea that this means that the game simply does not hold the potential for additional challenge to the main, you know, and it is easy. It is set to the easiest difficulty by default, and I have not found a way to change that in the definitive edition. However, and again, maybe this is because I'm a 90s kid, but you can think of, like, you know, use your imagination. I personally am quite fond of, you know, one way I've found to challenge myself is get extremely close to an enemy before you flower power them. Try to pass certain levels. It's not possible for all of them, but certain levels, see if you can pass them without using the seeds at all. Yeah, right. I did also want to note, it was interesting to me, this seems somewhat geared towards speedruns, which, like, fair enough, I understand it. I don't disagree that it makes sense, you know, and that's also where the run function really comes in handy. Yeah, when you start a level, there's a second counter. I don't know what happened to the first counter, and yeah, you know, I actually did find a speed run right here on YouTube. That was actually where I got the idea for how to unlock the additional levels. But yeah, let's see, or got the idea, got the direction, I guess, is there's practically a walkthrough, though I'm not sure it was meant to be for that particular element. Yeah, it's I mean, that's the thing. Again, I don't know if this is purposeful or not, but for the speedrun element, it makes sense. You can replay any level, and I gotta say, I really, really appreciate that. Because that is one thing. If in the original version, I think it's true for all of these. Once you complete a level, that's it. Can't play that level again ever. And I get it, but I like being able to. It's yeah. Let's see. I think that does pretty well. Right. So in the original version of this game, when you enter a level, it will tell you if it does or does not have Boobus bombs. And in the original, they are always in clusters of 3. And, like, hypothetically, it's possible to leave a level without collecting all 3, or even without collecting any. But that's part of, you know, in the original version, you're encouraged to seek through the levels, those levels, to find the Boobus bombs. You don't have to complete any level that doesn't have, you know, yeah, you have to complete at least 4 levels that have Boobus bombs. That way you'll have 12, then you can just go defeat him. That if that's what you want, you can skip the rest of the levels. I recommend playing all the levels, but yeah. In the definitive edition, it seems like you can only collect, I think it was it 12? I think did I get 13? But I think that might have been a bug. But the, yeah, once you gain access to the new levels, yeah. Okay, I guess I can't really, okay. I guess the following is technically another spoiler. Yeah, there are 12 new levels. There are 12 original levels. Each of the new levels, you don't have to find a Boobas Bomb. If you complete the level, it will give you a Boobas Bomb. So once you've completed all 12 levels, or for me it was 11 because one of them was glitched. I was able to play it after completing the entire game, but yeah. Anyway, yeah, that's how you get the Boobas Bombs in the Definitive Edition. Yeah, I think that does pretty well get us to... You're right, and once you've completed a level, it will tell you how many points you got and what speed you got. And I think it may be... I didn't notice because it's not really important to me, you know, but yeah, I think it maybe notes what your highest score and fastest run for every level is, which means that you can go up to it, see that, and be like, I can't beat that, or I can definitely beat that, you know. So, and this is one of those things where, like, I feel like if the game was made better, there would probably be online leaderboards, but whatever. I guess you can grab a still shot of it and you know, share. But the I'm gonna try to keep the snark to a minimum. So some people have criticized the fact, and it is a fact, that you technically can't see just from well, let's see, does it show it when you Right. Did I mention? I think I may have done a bad job explaining. When it tells you your score, I think that's when, right after you complete a level, it'll tell you your score and speed. I think it maybe also shows it if you, once you unlock the ability to play the additional levels, then it might. I think so. I feel like there was a screen for that. Anyway, yeah, in this one, you can't, as far as I can tell at least, you can't collect the points, whatever, bonus points, over the course of the game the way you can in the original. In the original, you know, yeah, there's a high score at the end, obviously local because it's pre-internet, these games. You actually had to, like, I think send a letter or maybe phone someone in order to get the games, and they would send the, like, floppy in the mail. Yeah, wonderful. Anyway, yeah, in this one you can't collect, which again, it's a choice. I don't really have much of an opinion on it either way. I don't know enough about gamer culture. I get, am I a gamer? Like, I love playing video games. I love, like, I'm a completionist for a number of games, but yeah, I don't know if I can quite call myself a gamer, all the way at least. Certainly I take issue with a bunch of the bigotry in the gaming community. That really, really sucks. Anyway, I feel like I've heard that a lot, that there's a culture for speedrunning today that there just wasn't in the 90s, which makes sense, internet and all. So yeah, they made this game geared towards speedruns, and I respect that. The high score was never my main, you know, thing for, like, it's fun to see the points go up, but yeah. Right, and obviously in the Definitive Edition, there's no such thing as gathering extra lives because you have infinite. They replaced all the one-up pickups, the bonus, you know, with, you know what, I actually forget if it's seeds or if it's point stuff, but one of those. Anyway, I think... But yeah, you know, basically in the Definitive Edition, you don't really have to go looking for the Boobas bombs, and it makes sense as being for speedrunners. I appreciate it on the basis that without save scumming, sometimes I struggle with these levels, more than I would with save scumming. Sometimes you still do, but I guess I wouldn't hate if there were two options and one of them said, no, you have to find the bombs, because like I do think that is important to the identity of the Commander Keen games. You know, again, I do not remember about 5 and 6, but yeah, the trilogy, the fourth game, and the original version of this, you gotta find stuff in order to be able to complete the game. Yeah, I think, does that bring us to... So yeah, obviously, you know, there's replayability in the speedrunning element. No Steam achievements. I think I've mentioned every bug and glitch. Yeah, I think they do a good job of this like dreamlike setting. Like, it doesn't feel quite real. You know, a lot of the others, you know, you're on an alien planet or Mars or, you know, a spaceship or something like that. And this one, it has a very unique identity among this series, and I guess in general, like, I honestly don't know that many other games where you're in like a nightmare version of something as wonderfully silly as hating vegetables. You know, like, there's other games with like nightmare. I already mentioned Silent Hill, but Silent Hill. Anyway, boy, that movie was silly in a lot of wrong ways. I'm not saying nothing in the game is silly. What's going on with that radio? But it was the wrong kind of silly in the movie. IMO. Right. So I got away from this before, or it got away from me. I'm going to try not to be snarky about it. Some people have taken issue with the fact that, and it is a fact, you can't see if you've completed a level with a lot of them. There are a few where you can only move past them if you've completed them. So basically, if you're going up to a place that has a level, if you can't walk past, it means it hasn't been completed yet, because it's literally, it's in your way, sir. The original version does, it places like a done sign, and you also won't be able to enter that level anymore. In the definitive edition, yeah, hypothetically, if you don't keep track, you might play the same level multiple times. As a 90s kid, the thing we would do is have a pad and pen, pad of paper, pen, next to the keyboard to keep track of things that I'm trying not to be snarky, I swear. I don't hate you if this is something that just... I think that's a good solution. I think that works. You know, if you can't remember, and if you need additional, let me offer a little bit of further advice. I swear, normally I wouldn't do this, but I saw several people say, I can't tell if I've completed. You know, I can't see what levels I've completed. So, a couple things you can do. You can write roughly where on the overworld map that it is, because that obviously doesn't change. You can write down the name, and then if you enter a level that has that name, you can use the menu to jump back out to the overworld. Yeah, and on this you know, paper, you can keep track of, have you completed the original version and or the new version of this level. Yeah. So, the level design, I'm willing to acknowledge there are a few levels, both original and the new ones, that are not the best, you know. But those, in my opinion, are very few and far between. Yes. So, okay. You get to go to a castle. There's like these mines, like potato soldier mines, complete with like I think it's supposed to be like a mine cart. It looks slightly, it doesn't completely look like that, but okay. And there's this area where there's like this, I don't know if it's like supposed to be radioactive, but it's like glowing green and you don't want to touch it. You can, it's one of those things you can pretty much guess, okay, that's probably not, I shouldn't touch that. You have to jump, and you kind of don't have to jump from one minecart to the other, but if you don't jump from one minecart to the other, you have to stand where the minecart just goes back and forth and it'll push you, and there's fire below, so you have to jump, and there's the radioactive stuff is right there on the other side, so you have to jump very carefully. You have to time it exactly because it goes by fast. And let's see, I think you can maybe land right on the tippy edge if you're extremely careful, but then you have to jump immediately, otherwise the other minecart is going to push you into the fire. That was also a great idea to include fire. Immediately you can see that's dangerous. Don't want to touch that. Don't want to be on fire. Don't like fire. That is something in these, I think I already mentioned that in one of my other videos on one of the earlier Command & King games, but obviously it can be an issue because sometimes you can't see if the thing is something you can touch or not safely. And certain things the game definitely does want you to interact with, so that can be a little unfortunate. And that's again where save scumming becomes really, really good, because like, haven't seen that thing before. Save? Okay, let's see. I can touch it now. Anyway, I think the okay. I don't want to go on forever. I could talk about every single one of these levels, but I don't want to, this video is probably, I don't even want to look at how long this video already is. Let's see. Oh, I looked. That was a mistake. I've talked for over an hour about, okay. I'm not going to talk about every single level. I swear. There's one level with grapes. That was the one I forgot. Or I guess technically that's not an enemy. It's an obstacle. If you move under a grape, you're going to want to move further, because it's going to emit this scream that they do such a great job. They push it right to the edge. It's not something that's going to give a 7-year-old nightmares. Trust me, I tested it on myself. But it's going to put you on edge. It's going to be like, ugh, don't want that. And it's going to fall, and it's going to like open its horrifying mouth, and it's going to crush you. And then it's going to go right back up to where it was. So you can't even like trigger it and then be safe, which, fair enough. Sometimes you really don't want it to stay on the ground, because if you walk into it after it's landed, that also kills you. Yeah, there's a level where you have to dodge a bunch of those. And they do this thing that is, if you can't save scum, you kind of hate it. But with save scumming, it's like, fair play. Sometimes the grape will be out of view, so you'll jump up onto a platform, and oh, sucks for you, there was a grape above. And I think at least one of those places, it's so close to the platform that you literally can't get out of the way, so it's basically just, don't touch that platform, And that's also, keep in mind, you can look up, Do look up. I have not watched Don't Look Up. I've heard very mixed things. Some people I trust hate it, so I probably won't watch it. Have watched other stuff by that guy. What's it called again? Is it Thank You For Smoking? Is it Thank You For Not Smoking? I forget, but I have watched that one. Not 100% sure what to make of it. I'm a little mixed on it. Not currently planning a video. Might, if I figure out how I feel about it. So the video won't be super confused and wishy-washy. On like it's political. It's a political movie. I don't want to be wishy-washy on politics. The time for that has passed. If there ever was a time for it, which I'm not entirely sure I would say there was. Okay, I'm gonna be super selective about what levels to talk about. There's one where there's like grass, and it's just tall enough that you can sort of see there's an enemy right there, isn't there? And if you don't react fast enough, that enemy is going to get you, So, yeah, wonderfully done there. Let's see. There's also another, I'm going to call it an obstacle because it doesn't really move, but there's these, and it doesn't react to you, really. There's these things that spit out seeds, and I guess they're not flower seeds, or I guess they're a different kind of flower seed, because King can't catch them. He can just... catch a whooping if he gets hit by it. And it does this thing where it moves in an arc and then it sort of bounces. And sometimes you gotta be ready to move past because, like, you know, life is all about healing. But, you know, yeah, it'll keep spitting like any good rapper until well, forever. and you know, you some of these you gotta at some point get past. Don't have some pint if you're not of age. Anyway, I guess I shouldn't talk too much more about the levels. I really want to. I guess I'll just name check Spud City, which I think is just a wonderful, like, they have a little society. You know, honestly, it's almost like, I mean, you kind of did go to their kingdom, but then again, like, you know, according to the text story, Keen is not the only child that was kidnapped by Boo Boo, the king. Which is also like, holy crap, the 90s were a different time, man. Mass kidnapping of kids? Like, I'm only mentioning because it's in the game. Like, it's in text in the game. It's not even subtext. The game straight up tells you. The king kidnaps kids. That's, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think if the game was made today, and that's also brave that they didn't change that for the definitive edition, but then, you know, there would definitely be frustration from a lot of people. Anyway, yeah, if the game were made today for the first time, that would probably not be it. Because, like, you could have just said, you know, somehow he finds himself in this kingdom and the king hates outsiders, so, you know, you have to defeat him if you want to get home. And, you know, maybe you could read into that, oh, did he kidnap Keen? But it wouldn't be, like, it wouldn't be outright saying, but no, it's at the start and the end of the game. It talks about kidnapped kids. Let's see. Okay, so the level design. They do a good job of keeping it varied. In both editions, there's not really any two levels that feel the exact same. I really appreciate that. Yeah, some of them, a lot of jumping. Some of them are kind of, I wouldn't quite call them labyrinthian, maze-like. But there was enough for a 7-year-old maze-loving me. Loved mazes so much. 1 year for Christmas, I got a book of mazes, and I was jumping for joy. You know, my parents knew that I loved mazes, so they got me a book, and, like, literally, I mean, it's so silly. It's just, you know, you open it, you flip to a page, there's a start area, there's an end area, and you trace with your finger, and oh no, I ran into this thing. Now I have to start over, you know, but I loved it, because I love mazes. I was pretty satisfied with the maze stuff in this, but, you know, I realize, you know, the game's supposed to be able to be played to completion for 7-year-olds, so they don't go, like, completely over the top with it. There's other games that have actual mazes, you know. But yeah, I also think they do a good job of gradually escalating, and it is one of those things where you don't necessarily know how tough a level is going to be, because some of the last ones are not the toughest, and some of it is also like, well, which is the last one? Because some of them you can walk, some of them are very close to where you start out, and yet actually very challenging. One of the most challenging ones is very, very close to where you start, but for some of them, you know, you'll have to complete other levels and walk a bit of a distance. Like, there's only one path to get there. You know, yeah, you expect those to be the toughest. Sometimes it's the case, sometimes not. That's always been a thing well, always. It's sometimes a thing in these. It's also a thing in the fourth game. And I don't really remember about the others, because this and the fourth are the ones I've played the most. The new levels. Some of them are very slight variations on the originals. I never felt like, okay, that's just too little of a change. I always felt like they did at least just enough to make it feel like it was, yeah. It's not there. You're never just dealing with like a reskin. I felt like I got my money discounted worth. Um, I'm really gonna miss this. That's how, when I talk about the elements of this that are less than stellar, I'm focusing on the fact that I'm not gonna get to play another new level of this game anytime soon. I've been wanting new levels for this game for 30 plus years. I was so happy to find out this existed and to buy it and to play it. And the only times where I was like, pretty well, I've mentioned the bugs and glitches and slight frustrations. Other than that, it was only when I was slightly unsure on, how to get to the new levels and how, if they would work and stuff like that. Anyway, some of them are more than slight variations. One of them doesn't even feel, I think with one of them, they kind of just placed it, they had to place it somewhere, but it doesn't really feel like it has anything to do with where it's placed at all, which is fine. I'm just acknowledging it because when I entered that level, I was like, is this a variation or is this just, and I'm happy with it. It was an awesome level. Some of the toughest levels of this game are the new ones, which is appropriate because you can't play them from right away. I mentioned earlier, if you skip spoilers, you don't know how, but you can't play them from right away. Some of them are not the toughest. Some of them you definitely have to use the run function. Others, oh, hold on. Thinking about it, I guess maybe you kind of... No, there was one level that I completed without using the run function at all. But I think, in retrospect, that was before I started really using the run function. It might have been easier if I had used the run function at the time. Anyway, right, note that if you use the run function, disengage it before you start using a pole. Because it seems like you genuinely can't grab onto a pole if you jump and you hold down run. That takes a little adjustment too, because otherwise it's a good idea to hold down run while you jump, unless you don't want to jump that far. Anyway, right. In general, there were a couple of times where it seemed like it struggled a little to grab onto a pole. It's slightly fidgety, but more or less consistent. You just gotta get used to how it is in the definitive edition. If you play that one, it's the same. It works. Yeah, I've already said that for the original. If you get the definitive edition and then you play the original, it works exactly the same for me. But the yeah, once you've gotten used to it, and thankfully the very first level is a great time to practice. You just got to know it before you get into the game. I am a big believer in, if a game has a thing that you just got to get used to, if it has a place that's safe for you to get used to it, then it's not really a problem. It's just something you should know before going into it, I think the harshest of criticism should go to games that just, when we're talking about games, I mean, should go to the ones that genuinely don't work. I don't think we should go super hard on... I respect the people who went hard on this. Personally, I prefer only going hard on the games that actually just genuinely kind of don't work. Like I mentioned, I think I should have been a little harsher when talking about that aspect of Enter the Matrix. I forget if I did or not, but certainly that is a thing that, yeah. I've played the game like, I don't know, a dozen times, maybe more, over many, many years. And that's the level that tends to have me like, come on, just get with it. And it's so weird because, like, why didn't they just at some point say, you know what, maybe we should just let the player drive in this level instead, because this is not working. But yeah. Anyway, moving on, I think they did a really good job in the new levels of keeping the variation around. Like, I think, no, yeah, genuinely, they made sure, like, some levels you gotta, you know, jump a bunch of times, and that's basically the level. You don't really have to do anything but jump. Some of them you have to time stuff about, you know, obstacles or enemies and such. I already mentioned, well, yeah. In the new, one of the new levels, I think somewhat qualifies as a labyrinth. And I friggin' loved it. It was amazing. And I through these days I barely replay games, but I might actually go back and replay at least some of this because that was such. Okay, I'm sorry. I have to. I swear I'm gonna move on soon. I'm just gonna note that if you've played the original, you already know sometimes this game has keys. Sometimes there'll be more than one key in a level. One of the new levels, you start next to 3 gates. So you need 3 keys, and you have to, without save scumming, find the keys, retrieve the keys, get back in one piece to the start of the level. And I cannot put into words in any language spoken by you, I mean us mere human beings, that conveys how satisfying it was to land in front of those 3 gates, walk up, open all 3, walk to past the exit sign, and complete the level. I bet that one is amazing to speed run. I think that if you're just looking for, like, I just want to do like a little bit of speed running, that one definitely. It's yeah. One level makes really solid use of the mining carts in a very fun way that I didn't quite, because like for some of it you gotta duck some of the time, but then not duck the rest of the time. You maybe sometimes jump between them, and something I quite appreciated, because I will admit I did pretty quickly find, okay, I'm sorry, these mining carts are a little frustrating. You can, if you really want to, you can avoid them and just do the running jumps to get through the level without having to do that. One of the levels is a chase. You are being chased by an enemy, and you have to do some of the toughest platforming. If you played the original, you already know. In the castle setting, there's these, like, it's actually interesting because they're animals and everything else in this game is vegetable. But anyway, rhinoceroses. I don't know how to pluralize rhinoceros, but there's rhinoceros statues, and if I recall, like, you can see the eyes move. So I guess it is just like, if you could see the other side of the wall, there would just straight be a rhinoceros hanging out. And it's peeved. It is not happy because it keeps sticking its tongue out in a very rude manner. Thankfully, you can land on that tongue. Unfortunately, the tongue does not last very long, and that's also something. Thankfully, the first time you encounter it, you get to practice a little bit. You get to practice in a very safe area. But yes, they use that. They go even further. I thought it was already in the original, like, oh wow, that was really a tough, you know, rhinoceros tongue jump. They push it further, and they do such a great job, because it's like, it's just to the level where you're like, is this even a possible jump? And then you make it, and it's like, oh my god. If you're still watching this video at this point, thank you so much. I hope this is as entertaining to watch as it is to record, and just remembering all these things from this wonderful game. You are a real one if you've watched this far. I hope that you actually care about this game and aren't just doing it out of some obligation. Anyway, I'm gonna move on. I think the following is the last level I talk about, but I mentioned the grapes. There's a level. They're at the bottom. You're a little higher up. They move up, and they cover the entire like, yeah, you know how people say the bottom line? I don't think they usually mean the bottom line is made of grapes, but the bottom line keeps moving, and if you touch it, you die. So you have to keep getting further up, and you got to do all these really careful, like, running jumps, and sometimes there's enemies, and it's like, do I knock this enemy out? Do I try to jump over? Can I even, just, how do I do this? And it was such a wonderful, yes, we're going to move on. I think that's everything about levels. Okay, so, yeah, it's like, I don't know that I would necessarily, I wouldn't go so far as to say that the environments feel lived in, but they feel like places, you know, like, it's obviously it's all like drawn and animated. It's like, they're not real places, and I'm not saying I would, you know, want to go to any of these places for real, but yeah, there's a sense, it doesn't just feel like a collection of areas that you have to make your way through. It's too bad when games can't, you know, cross that hurdle. Doesn't necessarily ruin the game. It can make up for it in other ways. But yeah, this was a place where this was a game where they really did a good job in both new and old levels. Let's see. So I think I've said what I had to about the let's see. Yeah, I mean, puzzles, if you want to call them that, essentially boil down to, how do I get through this level? How do I get into this area? You know, stuff like that. You know, there's jumping puzzles, but it's not like you're never gonna have to like crack a code or, you know, do something. Yeah, I think that might actually bring us to the... Okay, I'm just going to double check because I do have my old review. I'm just going to skim it. I read the whole thing earlier. I'm just going to skim to see if there was anything... Yeah, I don't think so. Yeah. I guess I already mentioned that the boss fight here is much better than in the third one. You know, part of it is the responsiveness of the controls. You finally, this is the first time in the entire series, when you shoot, you just use one key instead of having to use two at the same time, you know? And this would be consistent across the rest. You know, the next 3 Keen games also have that. I think... Okay, I'm just going to briefly note. So the boss fight, you know, there is movement pattern, and you have... Like, it's a, you know, the boss fight arena is larger than some other boss fight arenas, and they do a really good job. Like, there's this, like, I'm not going to give away, but there's no trick to it. It's just a simple trick to how you defeat, you know, and it's, yeah, you figure it out. You know, it's not, like, impossible to, you know, and yeah. In the third one, it was really frustrating. Here, they do such a good job. It's genuinely just, yeah. There's just enough space, and the way that the boss enemy, the movement pattern, it's just right. You know, you never feel like you're invincible, but it also doesn't. It's not overwhelming. And yeah, they do such a good job of the... Yeah. That is one thing that was slightly awkward. Technically, the boss fight now in the definitive edition comes at the end after completing the new levels. And the first of the new levels was, you know... Yeah, oh wait, I already said that earlier in the video, didn't I? Okay. Just in case I didn't say it. So again, spoilers. The first of the new levels is technically sort of a boss level. You know, it's Boobus' chambers, and once you've completed that, you know, you don't defeat him there, but once you've completed that level, then you have access to all the other new ones, which is fine enough. But then, you know, the actual final level is the exact same as in the original version. So you play all the new levels, and then you play the last of the old levels. I don't know, it's a tiny bit awkward, but I also appreciate, I don't know what else they could have done. Yeah, holy crap, 95 minutes of, yeah. I knew it was gonna end up being one of the longer ones because I can't. Especially like in my defense, I had to talk about the new stuff, you know? I couldn't just talk about the old stuff. And also, this is one of my like I loved this game growing up and I still love it. I can't deny it's one of my favorite games, you know? It's I acknowledge nostalgia is part of it though. You can't really say that for the new levels and I love those as well. So it is but yeah. I rate this 8 hippie. To be clear, I have nothing against hippies. Seeds thrown to great effect and with a lot of fun had by the savior of the galaxy, Commander, Keen, out of 10.